I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness. And I got to tell you, I'm really excited about today's guest because she is multifaceted, always growing, always changing. And I feel like not from a place of I need to like fixing something, but just because this is the human experience and I want to get the most out of life. And I so appreciate that about anyone. But let's bring on our guest, Tami McVay. Welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today.
Hello. Hi, Julie. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, I had the privilege of speaking with you privately, but not everybody knows who you are yet. So, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and how you got to be where you are today.
Well, I'm Tami McVay. I'm a business and lifestyle strategist, and I'm the founder of One of the Few. I joined the Marine Corps at 17 years old and had an incredible experience in the Marine Corps, and then a fabulous corporate career as a software developer. And then about 10 years ago, I just decided that I was stifling the best parts of me and I wanted to work more with people. And so I shocked everybody, and because I'm so positive and easygoing, and started doing my own thing, helping people, focusing in the social media space. And it's been an incredible journey.
I love that. I love that you've sort of stepped outside of the box of what people accept as normal. To walk away from a career, especially one that you're doing well in, takes a lot of courage and a lot of faith. And I'm just curious, were there times when, no matter how much you want something, at least for me, there have been times when I'm like, why did I do this? Why am I, why am I here right now? Why am I experiencing this? Did you ever have any of those thoughts or feelings?
Oh, absolutely. I started thinking about leaving my job about 6 years before I actually did it. Because that whole, there's that practical side to yourself. Things
Mhm.
are going well. Do you really want to rock the boat for this big unknown? And then once I actually took the leap, at first, I didn't really know what to do with myself. Like I almost felt like I was on vacation because I had this 24/7 to do whatever I wanted. And it was all up to me. And then one thing I wasn't prepared for was just the emotional journey.
Mhm.
Nobody told me how difficult that would be as an entrepreneur.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because I kind of touched on that as well. Well, first of all, it's rather lonely. Even with other entrepreneurs around, nobody is having your experience. So, uh, but nobody ever really talks about, even if you choose something, that there's a lot of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that come with it that you're probably not expecting to experience because you've chosen it. What would you say was one of the biggest ones that you struggled with?
Um, wow. So before I did it, I think mentally I just had this almost tunnel vision that
Hmm.
my career was in this, and so if I left, then I would have to, be in technology as well. And I just there was a lot of fear around that, and
Hmm.
so I got to the point where I had to really start looking at just my skills and assets that were beyond the actual job, those leadership skills and my kindness and compassion and my drive and my goal setting and all these different things that I had done. And so I had to really uh, take stock of that, that personal awareness, and really just dig deep into who I am as a person and then what I could bring to the table from there.
I think that you bring up something very valid. It's this idea, it's almost tunnel vision, like you were saying. It's like for example, I worked in addiction recovery for only 6 years, but I went from the bottom all the way to the top. And it was like when I was ready to be done with that, all I was thinking was, okay, other rehabs, or instead of like you taking a look at what my skills are, what made me successful in this job, and how can I use those and translate those into something else that I actually really want to do versus doing something I'm good at.
Mhm. And it's so true. And actually, one of the things that really helped me is when, I was like making up all these stories in my head about all these things that could go wrong if I took this huge risk and walked away. And also, my best friend stated the obvious. And she said, well, what's the worst that happens? You go get another IT job. And for some reason, that had never even crossed my mind because I was just like, burn the boats. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So.
I like that a lot because it is this all or nothing thinking that a lot of us are very conditioned into, that it makes it really hard to see, that it's not the end of the world. And kind of like your friend was saying, recently somebody, because I've taken a huge leap in my personal life towards business, but like it's not announced yet. And it was really scary. I mean, I literally have to put a lot of faith and trust into somebody that I don't know very well in order for this to work. And I do, but still there's part of me that's like, I don't know you. And even if I did, would that even be better? But I heard somewhere, I read somewhere, to have this idea that, you know what? Remember, I have a great life. Whether or not this works out, I have a great life.
So true.
It's not happening right now and I'm good. So if it doesn't happen later, I'm good. So,
It really is true. And I think that just, uh, when you're so clear on who you are, then you just know that even if things were to, start going south with that partnership, you just know like you're going to be able to trust your instincts. You're going to know the right answers when it comes.
yeah, exactly. And you really do. And even if things don't work out the way you want them to, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. You never know. That's the thing. You just never know it when it's happening. Might not feel good.
Yeah, that's where my best lessons have come from.
Exactly. Exactly. I've never grown as a human when everything was running smoothly. It's just way too easy to get comfortable and stuck in the day-to-day doingness of living.
Yes.
So, something else that I'd love to touch on really quick that you had mentioned, is that when you first started out as an entrepreneur doing this, it was like you're on this vacation, this 24/7, uh, you know, uh, nothing was set in stone. There was no real schedule. And I'm thinking that with your background in the military, that must have been really weird. What was that? I mean, how did you overcome that?
It was, I didn't realize how well I had my corporate schedule dialed in until it was gone. I would do the exact same things. I would eat the same thing every day. And then once I was doing my own thing, I didn't have that pressure and that stress of, these major project deadlines or project teams waiting on me. So I'd be relaxed in the morning. I'm having my cup of coffee. I'm writing a blog post. I'm doing a video. And all of a sudden that need, like I have to get to the gym at 11:30, was gone. And so I had to play around with my schedule for the longest time to figure out what was actually going to work for me.
I'm glad you said that because I think about how a bunch of people, for example, gained weight during COVID because their schedule all of a sudden was completely different. And I know a lot of people, when this happens, they blame themselves. They're like, well, I don't have the willpower, I don't have the motivation, or whatever they're telling themselves, but basically putting themselves down for not continuing to do all these healthy habits without realizing that a lot of it was anchored into, how you did your day. It was just without having to think about it.
Yes, because if you had a corporate job, you have to go to the gym before work, at lunch, or after work. Like those are your only options. But when you have all day long, then it's really easy to keep putting it off.
Yeah. I know that for me, when I first started working for myself, it was really easy for me to sit down in front of Netflix. I've got all day to do what I need to do. I'll just watch one show. And then all of a sudden it's like three shows later. And I'm like, wait a second, I have done nothing. And I have nothing to show for it. And so it was really interesting for me too, to sort of figure out what my new normal looks like and what actually works for me.
Mhm.
Because for me too, like the gym thing, I used to go before work, but now I can go anytime. So do I really need to go at that particular time of day? Does that really work for me now? And it's okay to change that, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And so as an entrepreneur, I found that it was better for me to go in the morning But then that was also when I was rested and I was most creative, because now I have to create content for marketing and I have to be, spot on and cheerful versus, going to my job and sit at a cubicle. So it was very different. And so then finally I came up with a routine where I'm creative. I do the things I need to do in the morning, and then I go to the gym like early afternoon.
I like that because you can break up your day.
Yes.
But if you're creating content and you want to have your hair done,
I,
then it's kind of nice that you didn't just get back from the gym.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting how a lot of us just stop without trying different things because it doesn't look the way it always has before. So I'm just curious too, when you started this new way of showing up in the world, what is one of your favorite things that you've been able to do to give back?
Oh, giving back. Being a Marine, like service has just always been a priority to me. And so I've volunteered and gotten involved with different charities, even through my corporate career. But last year I was invited to race across America. And we were able to raise $30,000 for Simplifying America's Fund. We were able to sponsor a graduating class of service dogs with leashes of valor. And so that it was definitely a challenging experience, but it was worth it in the end.
I like that. I too am somebody that has pretty much always had a volunteer um, gig, shall we say, because even when I was working 80 hours a week and on call for the rest of that time, there was always time for me. And it made me feel better about my life and myself. And, it's kind of selfish to give back sometimes. So what you get in return.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny that you say that, because I gave a speech to a room full of women Marines, and I was talking about that giving back, and it was okay to be selfish. And I saw this colonel across the room just kind of like look shocked that I said that, because people just don't realize how much it makes you feel grateful for the blessings that you have, how much just your heart swells, you feel good. It makes, when people are really in the most challenging parts of times of their lives and you step up and just show them kindness, I think it radiates in so many places, but just what it does for you, you just can't put a price on that.
No, you really can't. And, I came from the addiction or world of addiction recovery. And that's one of the things that is taught to recovering addicts is the idea of giving back. Because when you get out of yourself, all of a sudden your problems they're not stuck in the forefront of your mind because you're doing something for someone or something else. It makes it a lot easier to handle. And we all know that you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that got you there. So once again, being selfish.
Yep. And there's so many different ways to give back too. You can find a hobby of yours if you really like to go hike, or, you're into skiing. There's different ski camps for, children with disabilities. You can find ways to do what you love in a way that you're able to give back too. And so it makes it, even that much more of a win.
Exactly. Or even the things that nobody knows you do. It's the little simple things like my husband will, when we're out walking, if he sees a random poop on the ground, he'll pick it up. Obviously, not with his hand. We have a dog, so we've got bags. Or, if we see any trash, we always pick it up because it's there. It needs to be taken care of. So nobody knows that we do that. It's kind of a thankless give back, but it's also showing respect for our environment and where we live and where we are. So that's the give back, is we get to do something and show pride in where we are. And it's more about like that internal thing versus getting that recognition. Although recognition can be nice too. I'm not going to lie. So you have done and created a lot of amazing different things. And I'd love for you to share some of your wins as an entrepreneur.
Honestly, it's so hard to think of all the different things and ways that I've won. because one just overshadows everything else, is I was invited to be the MC at an adventure race that I do every year for injured veterans. And as part of that speech I gave, it was, this event can change your life if you let it. Because I think a lot of times people show up to things and they don't really show up with an open mind.
Yeah.
And so by doing that, there was a guy in the audience and he listened and he took what I had to say to heart. And a year later, he came up to me and said that talk saved his life. And he had been in a car accident and lost a leg due to a drunk driver. And he said he was just so filled with anger. And, he had tried to do the right thing and be designated a driver. And all of a sudden a drunk driver took him out. And so he just really angry. And so because of that, he showed up at the event differently. He met some incredible friends. He had a lot of fun. And then he just started being proactive with his life after that. And so, yeah, it's a powerful story. Every time I see him, we cry together.
I just got the chills, honestly. And here's the thing that I want to point out to everybody who's watching is that you were just showing up for, what you would do. It wasn't like you were seeking out that particular outcome. You were just showing up as your authentic self, doing what you do, and you were able to help somebody else by being yourself. I mean, I just want everybody to realize that just being themselves is enough. We don't give ourselves enough credit for how we show up in the world and how we affect others. But what you are sharing is so amazing because there's not a lot of people who can say that. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of people who are told that they had that kind of influence on other people. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but that's really cool. Yeah. How that would overshadow. Anyway, you were going to say.
Yeah. Well, and I think for anybody who uses social media, which is just about everybody, because even if you don't have a business, that your words matter and you can do this post. And maybe a lot of times, like I'm having a rough day and the message that it's in my heart to share is just something that I've been thinking about because it's something that I have to remind myself of that lesson. And so all of a sudden I do this post. And all people comment like, "Oh, I needed to hear that today. Thank you so much. This is, so timely." And I really wish that I had started doing more of that long before I started my business.
I really love that. I had a coach a while back that used to say, if you don't do what you just said, then you're doing a disservice to the public. And I thought, wow, that's really putting a lot of pressure on me. But but I get what what she meant, and what you're saying is that you genuinely, because you showed up, somebody else's day was better, somebody else's life was enhanced because you showed up and you were willing to share where you were with what was going on in your life. So it's not always the easiest thing to do, but it does make it worth it. Do you ever get people that are negative towards you when you do stuff like that?
I really don't. And I've actually thought about that a lot. Like, why is that? And so I don't know if it's just being a Marine and the way I carry myself or just the language I use. I really try to lead with both strength and kindness. And so I have a large male following as well. And I don't get hit on. I'm not getting, my DMs are blowing up with pictures or anything like that. And so I really just think it's just the way I carry myself and just creating that, that respect.
I love that because that's something I'm always preaching to my clients is somebody else's experience doesn't have to be yours. And if you set yourself up in a way, because I don't either. I don't have that problem either. And I'm out there a lot. So are you. And I've never really had a hater. So, but I don't expect to see them or hear them either. And that's part of, I think how I present myself. But anyway, we do need to go to a commercial break. So we're going to be back in just a minute. And for those of you who are watching us live, I just want to say thanks for joining us. When we come back, we're going to talk about a couple different things having to do with veterans and also what Tami's up to. She's got some pretty good stuff coming up. So stay tuned.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I'm Julie Meyer. You're watching Own Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest is Tami McVay. Welcome back to the show. So during the commercial break, I was just thinking about, actually I have a question. This is coming from you being a veteran. What are some things that you think are misunderstood that would help veterans that the public doesn't really necessarily understand?
Good question. I think it ties back into the soft skills again, only because the same thing happens to veterans that are transitioning. If they were in, supply or logistics or jets, like that's where they think they have to go work. But the military, especially just the drive and the discipline and the initiative and all these different things that make somebody a great leader can be applied anywhere. And so I think to watch civilians and the way they respond to them, or especially when it comes to interviewing, I had many people tell a lieutenant colonel, a friend of mine, that he was overqualified for many of the positions, but he had been in such high stress jobs all his career, and he had his retirement pay. So he didn't have to make a lot of money. He was looking forward to just doing something he enjoyed. And so I think people forget that too, just the demands on their lives for such a length of time, for 24/7.
I think that that's a really, really good way to look at it, because, I know there's certain things that I've done that I did not want. I mean, like, I literally did it for the fun of it, where other people might not think of it as fun. I mean, it was technically below my pay grade, but that's not what I was after. I was after the experience that I knew this particular job would give me versus how much cash I'm going to get out of it. So I like that idea of just honoring people and hear what they're saying. Hear what they're, especially somebody like him or you, hear them, listen, as opposed to just putting words and thoughts in, for somebody else, like in their mouth. So I just wanted to pop this up here because you have this coming up and you just started working on this podcast, and I'd love for you to share about it because I think you're onto something pretty amazing.
Thank you. Well, so one of the few is obviously a play on the Marine Corps saying the few, the proud, the Marines. I'm definitely one of the few, being a woman Marine. We are 0.0003% of the population. But that phrase alone, when you think of, Tom Brady being one of the few quarterbacks who, won multiple Super Bowl rings, we all know what that phrase means. And anybody can be one of the few of something. And the beautiful thing about life is you get to define what that looks like for you, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to have to take courage and a commitment to be willing to step out there and do something different.
I think that that's really cool. And I love that I love a play on words in general, because that just gets me interested. But I like that it's not just, you're talking about anybody can be that. It's not for a select kind of one of the few. Like you said,
Yeah.
Tom Brady. I mean, there may not be a lot of Tom Brady's, but there are a lot of one of the few of different things.
Yeah. Well, even yours being a wellness coach, there are a lot of wellness coaches, but you're one of the few that has a TV show, and that you're willing to step out there and do something different, and that courage and that commitment to do that. And so I think that we all have that special thing within us. You just have to decide what that is, and really just embrace who you are and step into that.
I love that so much. I guess what I would be curious to know is, when you, what's something that you wish that entrepreneurs were told when they decided to start out, and something that you're glad you weren't told when you started out?
Well, so one piece of advice that a lot of people give is to go study your competition. And that's something I just do not do. And part of that is when you're using your voice and finding your own messaging and the way you stand out. I would find that if I read something, sometimes their things would like pop into my head, and I didn't want it in the head. I wanted to, what I wanted to go talk about. And so I cut that out right in the very beginning. And I just really constantly work on building me and building my skill sets. And so then that way I know that I can give things from my unique perspective.
I love that. And what's something that you're glad that nobody told you?
No, I'm glad that nobody told me how hard it would be from an emotional roller coaster. Because being a Marine, like I'm pretty tough. I can, shut it down when I need to. But this was just feeling like you're at a tipping point forever.
Oh, yes. The other thing too that I want to add to that, I'm glad that nobody told me, was how much longer it would take than I expected, and how much more money it would cost than I thought.
Yes.
Always does. But, it's interesting, because for me, it's like I had this idea that there would be a point when I would make it. But it seems like every level I get to, there's always something new that is an issue or a problem, or something that, is new that feels slightly uncomfortable. I've never felt 100% comfortable ever since I became an entrepreneur. Not once.
It's true. And you start to grow your circle, and you start doing cool things. So you get around people that are doing cool things, and then that only challenges you even more. And so it's just this constant, spiral of growth.
Exactly. So I'm going to pop up your website again. What can people find when they come here?
So I do have some blog posts they're not very recent, but there are a lot of blog posts out there. And then just how to contact me, how to work with me. And I think just sharing my perspective, just the way that I look at life. Like I said, a big part of what I do is it's around strength and kindness. So if I can lift somebody up and they can stand on my shoulders till they can figure it out, then that's just how I like to roll.
Well, I also like too that you put strength and kindness together, because a lot of people confuse a bad attitude or being mean or rude as being strong, versus being kind and having strength. How many times have we heard, I'm not trying to be mean, or I'm just telling the truth, but.
Yeah. And I think that that's where, when you really balance that out, like to, really smile at somebody, and where you're feeling happy from the inside out, so they actually feel that smile. And then if you need to be blunt with somebody, or, tell them that honest truth that you're talking about, then they just know that you're coming at it from a good place.
Yeah, exactly. And because I live in California and I came from New York City. So it's very blunt in New York City. And I really didn't understand when I got here how not very well received some of my mannerisms that I picked up in New York were, because people here are, a little more sensitive and a little more, telling a story versus getting straight to the point. And it took me a little while to figure out how to remessage what I'm saying. I'm still blunt. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to stop being who I am. But I also figured out ways to do it to lessen the blow.
Well, you had asked what civilians should know about veterans. It's that same thing. It's like there's a mission, you need to say it, you need to be blunt, and that isn't always well received either.
Exactly. It's not that you're cold.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't care. I mean, that's what it was like for me when I worked in addiction recovery. For a long time, people just thought I was mean, and I couldn't figure out, because I have one of the biggest hearts ever. And I was like a bleeding heart when it came to the clients, but I also had to get things done. Imagine trying to get 13 grown women into a van by a certain time in the morning when none of them want to go. You think teenagers and kids are bad? Try grown women who don't want to be told what to do either.
I bet.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it's like a cultural difference, and I think because the military is a culture. And when you step out of that environment, who are you now? I know that one of my friends, she hated being in the military because everything was on a schedule and regimented. And the second she was out, she missed every moment of what to do, when, how, all the things. She was like, what am I supposed to do with my life? I can eat whenever I want. What are you talking about? So are there programs out there that help veterans assimilate to civilian life? I don't even know.
More and more, there are different programs. I think just with the influx of like Iraq and Afghanistan and the veterans transitioning and the issues that they've had, they've a lot of charities have popped up, and then also the military itself has transition programs.
Oh, that's good, because I don't feel like, I would wonder, because the military is the military, it's not exactly touchy-feely, So to help people with their emotions seems a little bit out of their realm of, I don't know, circle of influence, what they would do best. So I'm glad to hear that there are some things popping up, because everybody deserves to, especially if you put your life on the line for everyone else, I think you deserve some kindness, especially whether or not you agree with war. That has very little to do with, in my opinion, very little to do with anything. This person did this for you, whether, without being forced. Would you do that? Probably not. So I'd love to know a little bit more about, because I know that you used to do a lot of adventure stuff, but what does it look like to work with you?
So a lot of my coaching is geared around towards strengths, like really helping somebody see all the assets and the way that they bring value to no matter what they're doing, whether it's their family life or their business or in their career. And so just to really remind them of who they are. There's a saying, it's not bragging if you can back it up. And so, and as women, that can be really uncomfortable. Like even for me as a Marine, I knew that if I felt when I got away from that and I moved here to Colorado, where there isn't a Marine Corps base, I felt like anytime I talked about that with myself, that I felt like I was bragging. And so I really pulled back on myself, that part of me, for a long time. And so I think women, especially if, you have this great career, but then you become a mom. And so then it becomes so much of that focus becomes about your kids, and you forget about your dreams and the things that you want. And so to really help them get comfortable with that, and then get excited for what they want to go create.
I like that. I like that idea too, because you're not living inside of this box that necessarily, that you've always been in. And there's nothing wrong with being where you are. But I like this idea of actually taking a moment or a lot, a lot of moments and figuring out exactly where are your strengths? What do you want to enhance? What do you want to put out in the world? You said something that I think is really important that you just sort of set off the cuff, was that you had all of these parts of you that you kind of stifled down for the career that you were in, and you wanted to bring a lot of that out. I've noticed that a lot of people are like that, but they don't have the courage, or they don't want to look at that. So how did you, was it, you said it took you 6 years to leave, but so what? You could still be there, and now you're helping other people as well. But do you find that now that you're coaching, that you're able to encompass all the skills that you had when you were working before in your career and now as a coach? This is a career too, but you understand where I'm going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because one of the sayings that I have is work is personal and personal takes work. Because if you say you go into the office every day, but you just went through this really painful breakup and you've been crying your eyes out, and now you go to the office, like you bring you to the office. That doesn't mean you're going to break down in meetings, but that doesn't mean, but your heart's not in it, or maybe you just can't really focus. And so your personal life is impacting your business. Mm-hmm. And then on the opposite side, if you have, these big goals or dreams or projects you're working on, you almost always, have that on the back of your mind when you're at home too. And so, you really have to make it that point to really define your priorities and how you want to not only show up, but what you want to focus on and how you want to treat others and be treated. And so that personal side takes so much work, that self-awareness and really taking some space and some quiet time to think about, what do I want my life to look like? And what do I want, my family life to look like, or my romantic relationship to look like? And so it's not easy. And it's that constant reflection, just because each chapter of your life is so different. And then to your question, as far as bringing those skills from my corporate career, I definitely do, because, I was a project manager, I was a software developer, but all of my clients were like accounting and HR and payroll and legal. And so I was able to get this big umbrella picture of what business looked like and how they interacted. And so a lot of times, as my client is trying to like move forward on one project, but there's these other ones weighing on them, I, can help them get efficient and look at things differently. So I definitely put that in. Yeah.
I love that. On that note, I'm going to sneeze. Hold on one second. Excuse me. I knew that was coming. I warned you, didn't I? So those darn allergies. Plus we got a kitten, so I think I'm allergic to him too, but
oh no.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He's not going anywhere. Anyway, we do have to go somewhere. It's time for us to go to a commercial. So we're going to be back in just a minute. And when we do return, we're going to talk about, this idea of having it all, or, focusing on our strengths and actually what it is that we really want. In other words, asking better questions. And what does that look like? We'll be right back in just a minute.
Welcome to E360 TV. the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring Tami back to the stage. Welcome back. So I know that we were going to talk a little bit about like stepping into your greatness, and also, can you have it all and all these things. But I actually had an idea during the commercial break, and it stems on something that you said about, your personal life being work related, how everything's intertwined. You're one person, whether you're at work or not, and how everything affects everything else. And I was thinking about a friend of mine who, his son died this year, which is one of those things where, it was unexpected. And whether it's expected or not, it's one of those horrific things that some people have to go through. And he just was on a trip across the world to help other people, and he almost canceled it because, he'd been struggling throughout the year since his son passed away. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about pushing through, suit up, show up versus showing yourself grace, and how can you know what's best for you?
I do think that there comes a time when you just have to know that you need that solitude. You need to take that time to grieve or to process. I once had a therapist tell me sometimes you have to just sit in it, and, because you can't speed up that process.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can't be proactive in, living your life, doing the things that make you feel good or helping others to help you feel good. And so I think it just comes down to at least acknowledging how you're feeling as you're going about the process. Because I also know, being a Marine, like to shut down those emotions, then that only can come back to haunt you later if you don't process it. So it really becomes this delicate balance. But I think that if you take the time when things are good to really get to know yourself and how you operate, and how you succeed and how you deal with challenges, then when something really serious happens, you already have that good foundation.
That is such a brilliant, for those of you who are watching, I want you to rewind and listen to what she said. Basically practice and pay attention when everything is good, so that when things are not good, it's not like you're scrambling trying to figure everything out. I think, that's a gem right there. I'm so glad that he said that, because there's so many of us who, and this is myself included, I will do things, for example, and I'll, then things start to get good or whatever, and I stop doing them. And then I wonder why my life goes back to the way it was. or I figure I'll deal with that, or I'll figure it out when something happens. And then in the moment, if it would have been figured out before, I would have been fine. But because I have to figure it out then, I'm not making as good of choices for myself, because I'm coming from a lower, your brain actually shuts down some of its intelligence when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. So you can't make the same kind of choices for yourself when you're in there. And so I love this idea of doing it when you're fine.
Yeah. Well, it just like in the military, like that mission readiness. No, you're always getting ready to get ready. And so you have to treat your life in that same way. And so I really focus on first that foundation, really building that up, and then how you execute. But that foundation never really goes away. It's still always there. And then what does winning look like? How are you going to celebrate, all these really great, enriching lives that we have, but you have to make it that way too.
As I said before, commercial, how to ask better questions. That's a really good question. I like this idea too. I actually had this coach who would have us do, whenever we were going to unpack something from our past that was unpleasant, or deal with a current emotion that was unpleasant, we were supposed to bookend it with something positive, so that our brain would not associate it with something negative every time we wanted to look at something that was not necessarily fun for us. And I love that idea, because if you can end on a good note, you're going to be a lot more likely to help yourself again in the future if you do. So I like this idea of celebration.
Yes, definitely.
No, that's a good one. Do you have anything in particular that you do?
Well, I love to travel. I've now been to 30 countries. I've done some really cool adventures around the world, and a lot of times, that's been with friends, but it's also been with business. And so, that's always my first go-to.
I like that. And something that you'd mentioned before that I want to circle back to is, you spent a while figuring out what your new daily life would look like. And I'm just curious, for those people who are maybe struggling and want to start somewhere, one of the things that people tend to do is emulate others until they can figure out what works for them. So do you have like a morning ritual or routine that you pretty much stick to, or is it up in the air?
No, I tend to do the same things every morning, not quite as disciplined as I would like to be, just like everybody else. But in the morning, I get up, I have a cup of coffee. I will then start my day I go for a walk, take my dog for a walk. And as I'm doing that, I'm listening to an audiobook and getting my head right. And then I come back, I get ready, and then I meditate for 15 minutes. I do that intermittently. That's the one habit that I just wish I could get every single day, but I haven't. And so that's when I would meditate. And then doing that helps me get down into that creative space.
And I'm glad that you shared that you don't do it necessarily every day, because there's so many people out there that shame themselves for planning on doing it, knowing how good it is for them, and then not following through. And then it starts that whole cycle of, self-talk that is so negative. It's okay though. It's okay when you don't.
Well, especially women go into that perfectionism. I'm going to meditate every day, and then the moment I don't, then that's it. But if you look at it in a larger time window, out of 30 days, how many times did you meditate compared to last month? And then you gradually, maybe you only did it 4 times, but this month you did it 5 times. And so to really look at that, it's funny because you need to be focused on the details, but you also need to keep the big picture in mind.
That's a really good point. It's a little bit of both. You have to see the forest through the trees, but you're living in the trees. So
Well, you talked about having it all. And it's something that even when I was in my corporate and you go to sit down to do your annual review, and they talk about, well, what's your 3 to 5 year goals? And I always struggled with that question. And even now as an entrepreneur, like I finally just let that go, because if I'm constantly, trying to move forward, and when opportunities present themselves and starting to trust my gut, like even when you and I met, like I just knew immediately, like I liked you. And then I couldn't plan for this no matter how much I tried. And so I love being able to have, plan just a few months out, and then just constantly adjust.
I like that. You're leaving room for the mystery.
Yeah. And I just know the opportunities come my way if I show up and do the work and I have that solid foundation. And so just keep reminding myself that.
Well, I've been so guilty of having tunnel vision and missed so many wonderful opportunities because I was so focused on a particular outcome versus realizing or seeing the opportunities that were around me and maybe going in a different direction because that was more in alignment with what I want to do and it could have gotten me there faster or whatever the case may be. So I love the fact that you have like a basic idea, but yeah, you just leave room for things to show up that match you. Opportunities. Well, we are almost out of time. So I'm just curious if there's anything else that maybe you'd love to share with the audience that you haven't yet, or if, something that you would like to reiterate.
Well, I'm really excited about my podcast. I've just started doing some recording for that, and we'll have that out soon. And just because I find that the more I speak and use my voice, just the more excited I get, and then the more impact I can have. And so, that's my biggest project between now and the end of the year.
I love that. And what's coming up in the fall, because you and I talked about this, and I like to bring awareness to things, it's not Black History Month, but what is it?
Well, November is Veterans Day and the Marine Corps birthday. That's how I always get together with all my Marine Corps brothers at that time. And so, yeah.
I love that. And I like that you broke that mold too. I just can't believe you're one of the few. Big time. But anyway, I just wanted to say, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today, as always. And for those of you who have been paying attention, I want to pop up your website one more time. People, you can reach out to her through here. There's also Instagram, if you prefer that. I always like to give a bunch of different options because might as well make it as easy as possible, right? And then LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm wherever you hang out.
Exactly. Just, whatever works best for you, I'll be there. But anyway, Tami, it has been an absolute pleasure. So thank you for being on the show today. And I hope to have you back again someday soon.
Thank you so much.
And everyone, that is all the time that we have for now. So enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and we will see you again very soon.